New details emerge on the Bucks hiring of Taylor Jenkins and more awards for the Bucks draft pick last year. We get into it coming up after this.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, we get some more details on the hiring of Taylor Jenkins. We'll, of course, get a lot more later today, tomorrow, whenever it is you listen to this, as he has his introductory press conference. So our takeaways from some of what we've heard and the reporting by Sam Amick, what the market could potentially look like now for the Bucks' current superstar with what we're seeing from some other teams currently in the playoffs. And again, the accolades pour in for Bogaloop Markovic. But we start with the hiring of Taylor Jenkins. Sam Amick of The Athletic had his story, Tuesday morning, I believe this came out, that the long and short of it was, hey, the Bucks are paying Taylor Jenkins quite a bit to come to Milwaukee.
Yeah, and it was under the framework talking about how other decisions in the league are making things difficult in Portland. And it was brought up that, like, for example, with the Milwaukee Bucks, they have paid Taylor Jenkins reportedly north of $10 million annually to come and coach for the Milwaukee Bucks, which makes him one of the highest paid coaches in the league. Not the highest paid, because that was, I believe he said, Steve Kerr, who's getting like $17.5 million. What if he doesn't come back?
Yeah.
Then that goes to Spo over in Miami, who's making around $15 million a year coaching. So it does put Taylor Jenkins in a rarefied air to a certain degree in the NBA when it comes to coaches and their salaries. And it's really interesting when you see it kind of stacked up to some of the other guys who are making over $10 million reportedly as coaches in the NBA, and what that means and what it says for the Bucks. Because I know one of the questions that was thrown out there when the reports came out initially that the Milwaukee Bucks plan to hire Taylor Jenkins, a bit like everyone's like, already? Like, it must, like, how did they get him off the market? And we can see money definitely had to play a role in that one, because they opened up the checkbooks to get him in Milwaukee.
So you mentioned the two names that are out there that are definitely making more than Taylor Jenkins is this year, or reported to be. I've heard a number and a term of the contract. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share it from who I heard it from, but the way it was put to me is, so let's try to fill in as much without saying a whole lot here as we can. So JJ Redick I believe JJ Redick was on a $9 million contract. Nick Nurse is around like $8 million. Jason Kidd is around $9 million. So like that range is kind of where Taylor Jenkins is viewed in terms of coaches. What I was told was they basically paid two taxes, and they were the ones that decided to do this, knowing let's move quickly and let's get this done. So there was a tax to take him off the market now, which added a couple $1 million. And there was an additional tax that they were willing to pay to say, we don't know what's going to happen with number 34. Maybe he's on the team, maybe he's not. So here's what we think the range is for your pay and what you've done in Memphis and where your standing is among other coaches in the NBA. We think you're this amount. But given what we just told you about Giannis, and we want to get this done right now, we'll tack on X $1 million more. So I think the wording by Sam Amick in this, and I believe Ty Lue is right around Eric Spoelstra too, with what he's making, I want to say. So from what I heard, that figure would put Taylor Jenkins at the fourth highest paid coach, maybe in line with Ty Lue, just behind him. But that's what they were willing to do to get this done now and to tell him, look, I know you're probably going to hem and haw over this, knowing, as you and I said at the time, Camille, what if you waited and you see Jamal Mosley is fired the day after their season ends? Who knows what else happens with other teams? What if Taylor Jenkins was available and Denver went through what they did? Would they still be taking the stance of, yeah, David Adelman is our guy? Who knows? So there were going to be jobs out there that were frankly better jobs than this Milwaukee Bucks job. So to see the organization saying, we recognize we got to get this right. Let's get this done now. And I know it's going to cost us. Fine. Let's pay what it takes to get this done. You know, you and I were talking about this earlier today. You can say what you want about the group here that's in the ownership and the new member of the ownership group. What you cannot say is that he's not willing to spend money. You can criticize how much he puts his thumb on the scale and how much weight he has in that, but he is willing to spend money. And I think we saw that with this hiring.
Yeah, and that's one of the so-called redeeming qualities of ownership. You want an ownership group that will spend the money. So to know that the Bucks have that going on still, we saw that during the championship run with the Milwaukee Bucks not being afraid to be a team in the luxury, pay those taxes. You have Haslam come aboard now with this group as well, and you see them go out there and make an offer to Taylor Jenkins where it's like, okay, well, we're going to actually add on some money here for you because one, we want you off the market, and two, there is some roster uncertainty about what you're going to be inheriting here. So like, we want to make sure you're comfortable. We want to make sure you're here for the long run. So let's go ahead and pay you to come here. And I love that aspect of it. I do hope that, I've said it before, but the ideal world is that ownership lets the people that they hire do their jobs, that, you know, they provide the money, they provide the bankroll, and then you go and do your job. I'll just say if I'm happy with it or not at the end of the day, but not, you know, being in there with the day-to-day activities for the team. And seeing that they went out and they dropped the bankroll on Taylor Jenkins. One thing it does make me think about too is that I hope that that also continues in other areas with the organization. Like, I think last week or the week before that,
like the radio broadcast team, you would love to see them get.
We'd love to see the radio broadcast team get some more money in their pockets. Absolutely. But also, like we talked about, like bringing back the block party events, doing things in the community, making that presence felt again. I would love to see that from the Milwaukee Bucks. I would love to hear reporting come out from the Athletic or the Journal Sentinel that, hey, the Milwaukee Bucks have just paid a lot of money for their scouting department, for their analytics department, for all these other areas to help basketball operations be the best that it possibly can be. So if ownership is opening up the checkbook, you know, to bring in the right head coach, I hope that the checkbook remains open to bring in other departments to make sure that they are top in the league, top class operating, and also bringing up that opening up that checkbook to re-engage the community as well and be that presence that we saw the Bucks being 10 years or so ago when they really started doing annual block parties and just being out there and giving back to the fans a little bit more. I would love to see that.
What I did, did Sam Amick have the length of the contract in his story?
He did not.
What I've heard is it's longer than the previous contracts that they've given out too. So, and part of that too, I'm sure is Taylor Jenkins says, no, I need money and I need more job security in terms of the length of the contract, where I know if things go south, I'm getting paid one way or another. And they were willing to do that as well. So it's a good start to the offseason here for the Bucks. Where it could start to get murky, though, is this weekend. As we mentioned, we find out where the Bucks will be drafting, as the draft lottery is Sunday afternoon. And then we'll have the whole let's rip off the Band-Aid again and the conversation with Giannis and his future. But what does the market look like for Giannis, especially with what we're seeing from a couple teams? We'll shift the conversation to that coming up after this.
You ever watch a game and think, I need to know what these fans are saying about this team right now? On Reddit, you're plugged into millions of fans who are just as hopeful, dramatic, analytical, and loyal as you are. The Reddit app is for authentic conversations about anything and everything. I love that there are different team subreddits for every single NBA team. So I know that if the Knicks are dominating the Hawks, like in that game the other day, you can go right to the Hawks subreddit and say, how much are they breaking down and crashing out right now? I can go straight to the NBA one and see all kinds of great things. Reddit is where real fans hang out. Download the Reddit app and dive into your favorite team or the Mavericks subreddit for hot takes, fresh memes, and the group chat that literally never sleeps. Download the Reddit app today.
It is time now to talk to you about our friends over at BetterHelp, as May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's an important reminder that whatever you're carrying right now, you don't have to go through it alone. Life can feel overwhelming sometimes, whether it's stress, uncertainty, anxiety, or just trying to manage everything on your plate. It's easy to feel like you need to figure it out by yourself. Therapy can be a place to get support, gain perspective, and talk things through with someone who's there to listen and help. BetterHelp connects people with licensed therapists and makes it easier to get matched with someone who fits your needs and your goals. A lot of us have moments where stress or uncertainty keep us up at night, and it helps to remember that asking for support is strength. It's not a weakness. Mental Health Awareness Month is a good time to check in with yourself and really ask how you're doing. If your first match isn't the right fit with BetterHelp, you can switch therapists at any time. So you got someone with you, someone to listen, someone to support you, and help you make a real difference. That's because BetterHelp has helped millions of people connect with licensed therapists, and the matching process is designed to help you find someone who works for you. You don't have to be on this journey alone. Find support and have someone with you in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. And a reminder, you can find the link in the show details of today's episode to sign up for the Everyday Club. With it, you get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks and members access to the exclusive Discord as well. Find the link to sign up for it in the show notes of today's episode, and that is going to be the place to be on Sunday in the Discord and in Everyday to hang out with Camille and I as we take in the draft lottery and see where the Bucks will be drafting here the last week of June. Do we know the dates of the draft yet? Is it Wednesday,
I know
Thursday?
It's on a Tuesday. They did set the dates out. When I saw that night one was on a Tuesday, I was like, why are we having the draft on a Tuesday night? It's Tuesday, Wednesday this year.
Well, I mean, I would assume because they knew the Bucks are in the lottery, and Summerfest is always getting going on that Thursday. And doesn't it start Wednesday this year too? So
I think so.
Probably to help get that out of the way. Okay. This has turned out to be really fascinating because I wonder what, and again, we have to hear one way or another from both parties. And that's the thing I think we talked about on yesterday's show too. The difference in this offseason versus dealing with the chatter previously is I don't think we can rule out the organization saying, it's time. This is in our best interest. Whereas in the past, you could easily shoot that down. So I think that's what adds to it this summer. But looking at how things have shaken out, I don't know if like the group of teams that are most interested in Giannis or would be willing to throw something out there, there's going to be a group, but I kind of feel like it's changed drastically now. Like, let's say, for example, Minnesota beats San Antonio after what they did the other night, taking game one of that series. Let's say they win the series. Does that push San Antonio to say, wow, the young guys weren't ready yet? Maybe we do need to do this. Or you just, no, let's stay the course here. Oklahoma City lost in the second round too before winning the championship. So we feel good there. Minnesota was linked to him. And if Minnesota is doing this now, what's the desire to trade for Giannis in the offseason if you're the Minnesota? And granted, they didn't have the best collection of assets. It was going to require Jaden McDaniels to either come to Milwaukee or go to another team for draft picks. Now, if you're Minnesota, like, now we're good. Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, we feel great. Hey, we'll even throw in an extra first-round pick to Utah in this Rudy Gobert trade because of what it's done for us. So I feel like they've kind of exited that conversation now. Orlando's one we got to keep an eye on because it just feels like Orlando, you can't rule out we got to do something because of the cap situation. But as you and I said, it does feel like their move was the firing of Jamal Mosley.
Mhm.
And now, instead of making a trade, they're going to enter the season with the same group largely and just say a new coach can change it for us. If it doesn't work, then at the deadline, we got to look at blowing this up, but we're not doing it now. And then we come to the New York Knicks, who were clearly one of the top suitors, and that interest appeared to be mutual. I said on yesterday's bonus, I think the Sixers are going to win the Eastern Conference. I stand by it, despite how bad it looked in game one. Let's not forget the Bucks lost by 50 points to the Brooklyn Nets in game 2 of their series. But if you're New York and the Knicks win the Eastern Conference, no one is going to pick the Eastern Conference team to come out of the West unless it's Minnesota. And then you're like, well, can they keep doing this? But if you're the Knicks and you win the East, doesn't that take them out of the mix? Because the assets aren't great to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
The optics, right? And we've always kind of picked apart are we sure this works? We just saw him with a smaller, one-dimensional, can't hold up defensively point guard that is very ball dominant, needs the ball in his hands a lot. Are we sure that works? There's that conversation. But if the Knicks get to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999, that's pretty close to mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And now if you go there and you can say like, well, it's to get them over the hump. You are the guy that's joining a conference championship team that is Jalen Brunson's team who took them to the NBA Finals, and you're tagging along. You're joining a super team then, in that sense, if that's the case. And I'm not going to speak for Giannis or pretend I know the inner workings of him. What I feel like I know enough about is to know, and I don't mean this in a bad way, there is enough of a healthy ego to say, no, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm not joining his team.
I mean, we talked about how the playoffs were going to be very important for the Milwaukee Bucks, even though the Milwaukee Bucks are not in the dance this year. And it was going to be important to this team because of what the summer is going to bring, with teams putting in their bid to try to acquire Giannis. And I kept saying the teams that are going to try to put their bid in, it can change drastically based on how the playoffs go. Because now living in this parity era of the NBA where we haven't had back-to-back champions since 2019 now? 18? I think it's 18 now.
18.
Haven't had back-to-back champs since then. So it's like, okay, every year people are coming in like, we can win the championship this year. And because only one team can do that, all the other ones are going to try to find ways to get themselves back into that conversation, to put themselves in pole position. But what's interesting now, and you set it up by introducing this topic of saying like the difference is that now the front office also has a say. And it's the first time we've been having these conversations where it's not solely like if Giannis wants to stay or go, that's where the decision lies. Now the decision lies as well with the front office and what they can get. So I feel like there needs to kind of be like two separate lists of teams when having the conversation around Giannis. And one is teams that Giannis himself might look at and say, hey, they are closer to competing than the Milwaukee Bucks are. I would like to go there because I can win. Then the other side of it is, hey, these teams have the best packages to get Giannis. Might not necessarily be on the top of his list personally if he got a choice to pick where he wants to go. But these teams are calling, they are interested, and they have the best assets plus mix of players that we can get back. So it's actually really interesting to think about it in that sense where it's two different lists going on at the same time, so to speak. And the Knicks were probably on Giannis's list. But I think if they do get to the finals, not only do they come off of Giannis's list, but they are already probably low on the Bucks list themselves of like, hey, if we did this, we don't really want to engage with New York because they don't have what we want in this situation. But maybe it actually changes where Giannis sees himself because to your point, he does have that confidence and that alpha in him of being like, I want to kind of go somewhere to do something that hasn't been done before. And if they get there this year, the New York Knicks, I can see them coming right off that list.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who the team is. You know, like for all those reasons, even the first example that we started with too, of like, what if San Antonio says we need to do something because it was there for us? You're joining Victor Wembanyama's team, right? Oklahoma City, when everybody was kicking around like, well, that's the only team that has the assets so they could go get him. First of all, they don't need him with the depth that they have. And they're in a pretty good spot now to win back-to-back championships. But again, you're going to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's team. So, like, when you try to look through and see, well, who are these teams that you could join? I mean, Detroit is interesting. I know it's Cade Cunningham's team, but I don't think the cachet externally is there the same way that it is in the city of Detroit and around Pistons fans. It's just hard to find that mixture of who is going to appease what you want to do in terms of competing and doing it your way. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way, but who's going to appease you there and also get us the assets. And there's not a clean fit. Like we talked on the show the other day about Portland and how, like, okay, that's a cute story and all, but let's be real here. Like the adults are talking is what we kind of get to with that Portland rumor that's coming up. The other teams that you can point to and say, well, that's a decent fit. They either don't have assets for the Bucks or there's other roadblocks potentially there. I think for Giannis and even some of the other teams that have been kicked around, like, do you view Houston the same way we did last season during the course of the season where you say, like, well, if they had Giannis, like, they took a pretty big hit here through this process that I just keep coming back to. The teams, to me, that I felt like were going to be crazy enough to do something were Orlando potentially. And I don't think they're going to do anything that drastic because of the coaching change. The Miami Heat, despite what we heard from Pat Riley, and we talked about it on the show last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, I kind of feel like it's a smokescreen. And Miami is just, they realize, like, hey, we've touted Heat culture and we're better than this, and this, but we've been a play-in tournament team for the last, 4 years, whatever it is. I feel like they're at that level. And potentially Boston, right? Like Boston,
up now, yeah.
Denver, not for Giannis per se, but Denver's another team that is definitely going to do something. The same spot the Bucks were in a couple of years ago, but Boston is the most interesting one coming out of this first round of the playoffs, that now it feels like they're not quite there where we talk about timelines with Denver and where the Bucks had been, but Boston's not that far behind. And especially with the contract of those two guys, that's an interesting one for me to keep tabs on here.
It is. And I've had a couple of friends even like throwing out ideas like, would you engage with the trade with Boston, given the history between, the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks? And like, wouldn't it feel just like yucky if it was Giannis ended up in Boston? Kind of even worse, like the worst version of Drew ending up there. And I'm like, yeah, it would feel gross for sure. But like ultimately, the front office of the Milwaukee Bucks has to operate with the best interest of the Milwaukee Bucks at heart. And if that happens to be the best package going forward, it might prevent your own path going forward coming out the Eastern Conference. But like, does it get you set up for, the next 5-10 years in a way that you couldn't from another package? So it's always something worth debating. Like, I think it wouldn't be smart to just ignore the phone call overall of like, hey, we can't deal with them because, we have a history and they're a rival and we can't blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah. If you engage in a Giannis trade, like, you have to make sure that you are hearing all of the possible offers that are available and then do what's best for the franchise ultimately. Like, if they do a Giannis trade, I hope they don't send him somewhere crazy, but I hope that the Milwaukee Bucks do what's best for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Well, I got one other thought on that too. When you said you hope they don't do something crazy, because there is one other team we did not mention, and some more accolades for Bogaloop that roll in here. We'll get into those conversations coming up next.
First, a word from our friends over at FanDuel, because with the NBA playoffs being here, you know that every single possession matters. And if you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. So right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets for just getting started. The thing about using FanDuel, especially in the playoffs, that's really interesting and cool to me is the fact that you can get everything you need in one place. You can check stats, you can check the trends, you can check matchups, all before actually making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. So make sure you head over to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. And as a reminder, please gamble responsibly. Today's episode is also brought to you by Quo, because missed calls and slow follow-ups are silent killers for businesses. That's how money gets left on the table without people even realizing it. And that's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the business communication systems built so you never miss a call. Quo helps businesses every day keep conversations organized by letting your entire team manage calls and texts from one shared number. No more drop messages, missed opportunities, or disconnected communication. It's designed for how modern businesses actually operate. Everything lives in that one clean thread: the text, the calls, the email, the voicemails, everything. And the whole team sees the conversation so nothing falls through the cracks. Money is on the line. Always say hello with Quo. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off of your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That is QUO.com/lockedonnba.
Okay. To be clear, I am not advocating for the Bucks to trade Giannis. We both would prefer he remain a member of this team and finish his career with the Bucks. But as we said, I do feel like this is the first time that this conversation has been out there where you can't rule out the organization saying it is in our best interest to start to go in a different direction. The changes to the draft lottery, to the lottery itself, also make this interesting. Mm-hmm. Because there's one team that we have heard a lot of noise around of like, oh, look out for this team. This team is always kind of lurking for guys. And now, with what we're doing of flattening the odds, like, why shouldn't we just go for it? Because if we're going to be the worst team in the league, does us no better than just narrowly missing out. So this is our time. Let's go for it. I can't rule out the Brooklyn Nets.
Ooh.
Because there has been, albeit not like strong chatter, but there's been chatter there in the past. We've heard Brooklyn wants to get into that business and start attracting stars again. And you can also trade for players into cap space, which Brooklyn has this summer. They would have to do some other shedding, like probably trading either Terrence Mann or Nick Claxton, either in the deal or a separate deal to open up some more money. But they have a lot of young players. And the Brooklyn Nets still have a lot of draft picks coming up here on the horizon, including this year. They have 2 of them, I believe, in the 2027 draft. They have, I think, 3 in the 2028 draft, first rounders these are. So they got a lot of draft picks, and they can absorb the contract and not even make you take back something bad. So to me, that's the interesting one to just say, let's see if we hear chatter of Brooklyn trying to be competitive and they're going to lure this guy over and this guy, because the number one question with Brooklyn has always been, well, who's he going to play with? Why would he, if he wants to compete, why would he go there? And yeah, as of this moment, absolutely. But as we've seen, right, tampering exists in the league. And if there is we've talked to Milwaukee and we're working on a trade to bring in Giannis. So like, we're going to have him. We're going to keep Michael Porter Jr. And like, now we want your guy, talking to the agent of to come here, and he's going to join this group that we think is all of a sudden a playoff team next year in the Eastern Conference. That is the one dark horse that I look at, especially with the change to the draft, knowing it does you no good to be really bad. So, all right, let's speed this up and go for it. That's the one dark horse to me.
I didn't think about Brooklyn, but that's a great point. Like with the draft lottery coming up on Sunday, I've been saying, like, I'm just really curious to see how the top 3 shakes out. What does the top 4 shake out to be? Because if anyone jumps up into the top 3 that's unexpected, like a Golden State or Miami, because they have been previously linked to Giannis, I was just saying, like, ooh, like if that happens, the phone calls should probably start immediately to just see what it looks like. But I never considered, what if one of the teams that are already kind of in that top 3 worst positioning?
What if they stay there?
Yeah. Like what if Brooklyn does stay at 3? Like what if they get the 3rd pick in this draft? What does that mean for them and what they try to do, given the fact that last year they did add 5 rookies, albeit not coming into the league with the same, hype around them as the top 3 players in this current draft would if they had that top 3 spot. But
was there hype around those 5 rookies last year?
Nowhere near even the hype of like the 10th draft player in this 2026 class for last year's class. But I think you do have to keep an eye on them, which again, the draft lottery was already going to be interesting, but that Brooklyn point is one I did not consider, and I'll be keeping an eye on, as well as just to see if the Pacers actually keep their draft pick or if that goes to the Clippers this upcoming year as well.
Do you think so? Like we've kind of heard both sides of it in the reporting. Do you think Steve Kerr is waiting to make a decision to see what happens Sunday?
That's quite possible because the conversations have been ongoing, and it's not as if he's going to sign a media deal right now. He doesn't have to. He can afford to wait and see a little bit of like what the landscape for this team is going to be, because what I've heard around Steve Kerr is that the Warriors want more from him than just like a year commitment. They want a multi-year if he comes back, and they don't want him to be just because he said he wants to be the guy who always coaches Steph Curry. But if the lottery shakes a certain way, if they can bring in Giannis, like it does add a different dynamic to that team and could definitely entice a coach to stay a little bit longer if they know they have another superstar, in the wings besides the 36, 37-year-old guard that, they've been attached to this entire time. So, yeah, I think that's probably why Steve Kerr is still weighing his options. He wants to make sure he has a clear picture of the entire landscape before making that decision.
Well, as we wrap things here, Camille, you retweeted the story on Tuesday, but our friends over at Brew Hoop that's where I stumbled across it. But we mentioned some more accolades rolling in for Bogaloop Markovic, who was now named the MVP of his league. That it was last week we talked about. He was it the Rising Star Award that he
award?
Yeah, and now he's the MVP of that league.
We've talked a lot about certain guys on the Milwaukee Bucks roster and like, hey, what will their development look like with Taylor Jenkins at the helm? And Bogey is one that I have not thought too much about, in large part too, because, kind of a draft and stash this past year, did not come over, kept playing international ball. And when we saw him in summer league, it was like, yep, not ready yet, has to keep working on his frame and getting stronger. But if he doesn't look good in summer league, like what does his development look like if he is under this new Taylor Jenkins system? That's something I am curious about. A 6'11", 6'10", 6'11" guy that has a pretty unique skill set. The 3-point shooting kind of fell off a cliff for him a little bit this past year, but the free throw shooting has still been there for him. So there are still signs and hope that, the shooting will continue to come along. But he might be kind of one of those under the radar, deep bench guys that could really benefit too from this coaching change and coming in with the staff that can continue working on him with some areas of his game that can get him on the floor for this NBA team.
Still not the greatest in terms of his shooting. The efficiency is not there, but he's racked up some 30-point games in that league. That Bogaloop coming on strong here, and it's the Serbian league that he's playing in. So he was the top prospect 2 years in a row, winning that award. Now he is the MVP of the Serbian league, and he was also named to their ideal starting five, which is their variant of all NBA. So yeah, that last point that you made too about Taylor Jenkins, we talked about his development with some young guys currently on the roster. we didn't mention Bogoljub, and it's going to be, I think we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. You start to say he's going to be the most interesting guy to watch in Summer League, but then you stop yourself and remember, well, let's see what else happens. Maybe there's a better pick than 10. Maybe they keep the 10th pick. Maybe they bring in draft picks in another form. So this could be the most interesting Summer League that we've seen for the Bucks since probably Jabari Parker, because even I mean, since then, hands down. So I'm going to be very curious to see the jump shot for Bogoljub.
Yeah.
Like he's done everything else well and he has flourished there, but you're going to have that shot to be able to play at the NBA level. Okay, I know we touched on a lot today, so leave your thoughts on Bogoljub. Will we see him next year? Does hiring Taylor Jenkins increase his chances of coming over to the NBA next season? Leave your thoughts on that. Of course, the trade front and everything that we ran through here with Giannis. And one of the things we didn't get to but tiptoed around, what's the rooting interest from here on out in the postseason? And are we actually rooting for the Knicks? Because maybe that takes them off the board and increases the chances of Giannis staying here. So leave your thoughts, and we will get to those comments on tomorrow's show. We are, we'll maybe get to it in a bonus, because tomorrow's show, we are going to break down what we heard from Taylor Jenkins at his introductory press conference. It is 2:00 on Wednesday, so later today, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, and we are going to put a recording up there probably late afternoon, early evening, earlier than usual, recapping what we heard from Taylor Jenkins. I will be there in attendance, and I told you I bumped into somebody else who's going to be there 2 days ago as well, so we'll see if I can maybe coax him into joining us on the show as well. But we'll have the instant reaction to the press conference for Taylor Jenkins coming up on tomorrow's show. That'll do it for today. And again, if you're an everydayer, the Everydayer Club is what's built for you. You get ad-free episodes of Locked On Bucks, members-only Discord access as well. You can find the link to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the show notes of today's episode. You can hang out with us this weekend and take in the draft lottery itself if you are an everydayer, as that's our monthly get-together, and hear our instant reaction. Share yours as well with Camille and I. So sign up for the Everydayer Club and find the link to do so in the show notes of today's episode. For those of you on video, we now send you to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make it your second listen, NBA Game Nights on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.